Just stop it. The run-of-the-mill, cheesy, humdrum bullshit status quo just tires me out. What fascinates me are the industry disruptors, the superhuman frontiersmen or women who go through hell to achieve their goals. Join me as we meet and learn from those mavericks, rebels, and business leaders that aren't afraid to piss off the establishment in order to make radical change for good. Sponsored by Johto PR, the disruptive anti-PR firm that murders your competition with cinder blocks and cyanide. This is Disruption Interruption. Welcome back, everybody, to Disruption Interruption. I'm your host, KJ, and we're here today to talk to someone else who has steered off the lame, tired path of the status quo. Our guest today has been disrupting all his life. In fact, he's had to. After 15 years of building his leadership brand as a software engineer, an enterprise architect, a public speaker, and helping his community with financial leadership and empowerment, our guest made it his mission to uplift as many people as possible. How? By growing his vision into a media group that would be the conduit of Black and Brown experience in America. But we already have that, right? BET, Ebony Ascent. Nope, not anymore. Let's find out why. Please welcome our disruptor, David Lee, founder and CEO of Ebony Ascent. Yay! David, are you the CEO?
I am the CEO.
Okay, and you're the founder and the creator and the disruptor and
co-founder, right? And it's funny, I say CEO begrudgingly because I didn't want it when we founded the company. I was like, I don't want to be CEO. I was like, let me just put me in charge of like content, right? I'll just be VP of content and stuff like that or whatever. And it's just one of those things that after a while the team was just like, dude, stop.
Dude, you're the visionary. Yeah, right. So let's talk about this vision. First of all, like, how did this get started? You tell me your number one, your main ingredient for disruption.
Authenticity, honestly, because especially in today's world, like people aren't authentic, right? And it's, I don't know when it happened, but at some point we woke up and decided like, authenticity wasn't a thing, right? We couldn't be like, people felt like you can't be your true self in certain places, right? You had to like become this shell or this mask of what other people wanted you to be. And you had to fit into what everybody else thought it was. And so that's what you became. And, that's what kind of started, woke culture or whatever else you want to call it, is really people just saying like, no, I'm just going to be me. Like, and everything, like, no, let this person be who they are. Like, that's their truth. Why are we trying to silence that because it's not what you want to hear or doesn't make you comfortable, right? And so it started this nice tension between, like what's free speech and what's just somebody being who they are, right? Which should always be there, I believe. So, I mean, it's just, that's what I believe has been, kind of what led us to kind of say, let's do this a little differently. We watched, people say, well, Ebony Ascent, being something for Black and brown voices, right? Like, to your point, like, well, there's BET. No, BET started out that way. And then Bob Johnson became a billionaire, sold it to Viacom, and Viacom took it and said, well, let's take what was an actual healthy expression of Black music and Black culture, and then let's Viacom turn it into what we know is going to get people to watch. Right? Let's turn into the stereotype of we know people like to see. Let's get Black women yelling at each other. Let's get them fighting. Let's get, Black people being like thugs and all this stuff, whatever. Let's promote all of these stereotypes that we put out there. And it became appalling to Africans.
So degrading,
we're like, that's not all of us. Like, why would you? And so, but that's what, just the same thing we see in reality TV. That's what sells. That's what people want to see. People want to see drama. People want to see this. And so they fed into those stereotypes, right? We look at Ebony, Jet, Essence, amazing brands, amazing magazines, and they did a lot for us in the 60s and 70s. And they just haven't quite adapted to this online digital media world, right? They're still doing very good content. I'm not comparing those two to BET at all, but they're just not, they're not pushing forward. They decided to get big and just kind of play it safe, right? And just, say, well, we'll say the things that we can say kind of in a way that doesn't make anybody upset. And when we founded, when we decided to launch Ebony Ascent, the whole thing started with a conversation. We're just like, we're tired of this. Like, we want to hear like the real shit from people that look like us that have been through it. I don't want to hear this like pull up from your bootstraps and I just did that. Like, bullshit. No, you didn't. Like, it doesn't work like that. Like, and because our people were just starving. They just want information. We're not asking, nobody's asking for handouts and help. No. Just give us the same information and access to the same shit that you have. And don't tell me that it's not there because we know it's there. Mm-hmm. And we said, okay, how do we do this? What do we do? Like, what do we want to do? Entertainment. And we had this like just crazy thread of discussions for weeks. And we finally said, you know what? We're going to focus on the stuff that we feel like that matters, right? And it was a conversation to me, my co-founder, a couple of friends that said, I'm known as the financial person in my circle, right? I've helped all of them from repairing their credit, getting their houses, all this stuff, whatever. And I said, guys, real talk. Take me out of it, right? How much do you know about finances? And they just kind of paused and they said, well, yeah, I know this. I was like, okay, but when did you learn it? Did you learn it in school? No. Did your mom teach you? Did anybody in your family teach you? I was like, so would you say that this is something that's important? They're like, no, absolutely. It was like, yeah, actually, if it wasn't for you, like I wouldn't know a lot of this stuff. And I was like, okay, now let's think about that. Let's go start asking our friends, like how many people in our circles, that's the same thing. And then we started having that same kind of conversation. What do we think is really, really important? And the topics that we don't see talked about in mediums that we share from. I can go to YouTube and find all kinds of stuff, but like, where are we finding like Black entrepreneurs are telling us how they got their business started? We're seeing it here or there. Like, what if we just had all of that in one place? Let's do that.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that has become the status quo? And by the way, I will say, BET, Ebony Ascent, they were disruptive in their day.
Yes, absolutely.
And they have now become the status quo, right? Why do you think that information that you want, that you need, that your community needs is not there? Why is that?
So I think it's twofold. Number one, capitalization, right? Anytime you take a business and you start to scale it, most modern business is built on the old school manufacturing business model, which is you make a product, whatever it is, I don't care if you're a service company, like you have something that you offer and it comes down to cost of goods sold, right? Like how do I produce this for the least amount of money so I can increase my margin? And then how do I do that faster and faster and faster, right? As you scale out and get bigger, like you start to, let's just say, you start to cut corners to make that so you can get it out to everybody. It starts to become genericized. It's not the same thing that like, if it's me and you and we start a pottery shop and we're just every day, KJ, we're just like, we're going to make this the best piece of pottery ever. I mean, we are hours spent on it, right? And we sell it to one person and we feel this amazing. We're like, oh, there it is. But then all of a sudden we get 1 million orders. And me and you look at each other like, we are not about to spend all day doing it.
What are we doing? Like, I'm not doing that 1 million times.
Right?
Yeah.
So as those companies got bigger, there was less, they had to kind of conform to a way that they could scale and get their things out there. And then specifically about the content, right? There is the content that we focus on, right? So mental health, financial empowerment, entrepreneurship, and leadership. These aren't sexy things. I'm just going to be honest, right? They're not.
No, but they are what makes the world go round.
Exactly. They're not sexy things. They're boring. And then what we've seen in our community, in the Black community, is most of the time these things are represented. It's just there's no connection. There's no.
What do you mean?
They're trying to. So I've seen it delivered in a way that doesn't feel, back to authenticity, authentic, right? Because it's. This is when we named our core media group, right? On the corner, right? We said, okay, where does everything happen for where we grew up? It was on the corner. And this thing that you see in the Black community is that, say somebody goes off to college, they go off to college educated, they come back, they become successful, and they come back. And there's this feeling of like, oh, when they come back to the neighborhood, when they come back to the hood, it's like, oh, you're not the same. Something changed you. You're different. And here's what it is that there is a way culturally that we speak when we're comfortable around each other, but that's not accepted in normal America. Right. It's not accepted in mainstream. So I can't talk the way that I talk with my cousins or my boys in the boardroom because I'm looked at as unprofessional or this or that or whatever. So what happens is that person who left also has to shift back to that mask, right? They had to conform into this is what's acceptable for you mainstream. So then when they come, and then that becomes part of them. When they come back, at home, we're like, who who are you? What
you?
is this? Like, why don't just talk to me? Like, why are you using this? Why like? And so what's happened is anytime that's been trying to be presented back, it's been presented back in a mainstream way, right? Nobody's done the translation and go, okay, this is what's happening in mainstream. Let me translate it and like talk to you like how we normally talk, like it's me and you chilling, we on the corner, we on the block. Let me tell you about what's going on and how this needs to happen. We're actually starting to see that more and more from when you see like, and this is why we went digital, the content creator explosion, right? People realize that I've got this, they can create their platforms now and they can do that. And we're starting to see that take hold, that people are like, okay, cool, right? Because what's missing in all of this is that we connect in different ways, right? Culture is bigger than just race and anything. It's this community type feel of how we connect. And even goes back anthropologically. If you start looking at when we were tribes and all this stuff or whatever, like each tribe had their own way of communicating. Something just feels like home, right? Yeah. Like, you know, if you grow up with brothers and sisters, they just feel like home. There is a language that you and your brother and sister has that nobody else has, but you automatically understand. You walk into a room and see your brother, right? And maybe you just say aardvark and you guys just bust out laughing. Because you know what it means. There's a language that you have. And it's the same thing.
It's the same with geographical areas in the US. I mean, look at the Northeast, look at the South. I'm from the South. We have certain ways to communicate. The Northeast, my boyfriend's from Boston. They have a totally different what do they call them? Mass holes, right? Like totally different way to communicate. It's the same, right?
Yep. And it's what the struggle was is that wasn't being brought, the translation wasn't happening from what we saw, right? And so we said, look, this is a chance for us to do this and talk about the topics we love. Let's get the people, let's do two things. Let's highlight people that are doing things in these areas, right? You know, my podcast started off just in tech, and I was just talking about tech things. I was like, I'm going to highlight like women and people of color in tech, because every time you see tech, you see some, you know, middle-aged white man or some, you know, blonde-haired white woman, and that's it. And you think, well, that's all that's in tech, right? Or an Asian man, because it's a very high percentage of Asians in tech. And so when I would talk to people about tech, they would just like, well, I don't know if it's for me. It was like, why? Right? And I started to understand, because you don't see anybody that looks like you. And so I would challenge.
But there's a lot. I mean, I'm a witness to that with all the clients that we have. I mean, there's a lot, right?
Yep. I would do this fun challenge for any listener that's listening to this. Go find your favorite tech company. I don't care who they are. Go to their website and go to their About Us page, right? And when you go to About Us, you should see something that says our leadership team or something like that or whatever. You'll find it, right? All of them will say something different, and go look at it. And I guarantee you, 90% of those companies, when you see the leadership team, it's going to look like the age of one white man from the time he was 24, from the time he was 75. That's all you're going to see across the board. And they're all going to look the same. And it's like, you don't see anything that looks like, okay, would I want to be a part of this, right? Like with these people, are they going to look out for me? Are they going to nurture me? Are they going to help me grow my career? Like, can I trust them?
That's a big part, right? I mean, people complain that when people come over from other countries, they build their own communities, but I would do that. Right? I want to be around my people. I want to understand them. I want to feel like I have a connection.
Yeah. And there's this, we've created this politicized nature of everything to where I'm very much of, just because you are for something does not automatically mean you're anti anything else.
Right.
I believe that all like the beauty of this country, the fantasy that this country was built on was always that we would be this melting pot that welcomes anybody and everybody in, and you could create what you wanted here in America, right? Which means that a Jewish community could come in and bring everything with you, bring your culture, bring everything that's about you, right? And create that here. And then the part that we miss is like, and then you share it with everybody else. And then we have all these amazing communities that build themselves and they share and they can coexist. Like it can actually happen. We see it happen all the time. It's just, we don't want to show that because
then we see it happen, but nobody will admit that it's happening.
Exactly.
It's happening all the time, but
it's happening all the time.
We're not admitting it.
Right. And that's what, when we started to go on this journey and where we are today, like I'll be honest, we had some conversations because we were like, well, we don't want to seem too this, like we're not like, we are we going to be seen as like the Black Panther Party? We're doing that. I was like, guys, I was like having pride in our culture and who we are is not saying we are anti anybody else. And that's why we made very sure in our messaging, we're saying, look, we're having this conversation that's geared towards Black people, but everybody's welcome to come and sit on the table. We're not blocking anybody. Come sit down and join in the conversation with us. But just know that when you walk away from it, that the topic wasn't geared towards you, but that doesn't mean you weren't accepted. It's like if you walked into a college campus and walked into a professor's lecture on physics, and you're not a physics major, the professor's not going to sit there and stop teaching physics because you came in.
Get out, right?
Right? And he's not going to change what he's talking about because you came in and you're an accounting major. He's going to keep teaching physics.
Yeah.
And so you're welcome. And you can come back as many times as you want, but just know I'm teaching this for my physics students, but you're welcome to come in, right? He's going to teach it to the physics. And that's all that we're doing. And it's been so empowering. I told everybody, it's like, guys, be authentic. We're going to have, one voice, one message, just whatever we create, make sure it's us. Don't think about what somebody would hear. This might hurt you. It feels like, I said, I pushed on us so hard with this. I was like, just be who you are and what we are. And since we've launched, like the response has just been amazing, right? That we've seen from people, the other content that we've got coming up to address some other big issues we're excited about. It's been really fun and just heartwarming, right? To just see this kind of like idea to kind of turn into something and keep going. And we're going to keep pushing, right? And continue to up level these conversations and make sure that we create this community where our people feel like they're getting what they need in ways from people that look like them and in ways that make sense to them, that connect with them, right? And they don't feel like they're being talked at, they feel like they're being talked to. And that was a big thing that was kind of like our big hypothesis going in. It's like, we think a lot of people feel this way. And that's what we've been hearing from our listeners and engagers. Like, I just feel like we've got a mental health podcast with two mental health clinicians that, talk about different things and traumas and different ways to go about it and seeking therapy. And we've already had, people respond just like, I just feel like I'm talking to somebody from my family about stuff, and my family never talks about this stuff. I'm so glad you guys are doing this. And we're like, and that's why we wanted to do it. We want to make this normal.
Well, it sounds like not only is this your main ingredient for disruption, being authentic, it's also your mission statement.
Yeah.
I have to talk about this conformity thing, because I was talking with another disruptor, and we are in the age of disruption, right? But, back in the day, conformity was how our parents, that was the society, that was the framework. Yes. You conformed. I was talking about this with someone else too, about the business culture. This is the way you do things. This is the way you talk. This is the way you act. And we're now busting open this particular framework and figuring out this new framework.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't mean that there's not a framework. It's just a totally new framework, right?
Right.
How do you not conform when you scale this?
If I'm 100% honest,
100%, like this is complete, total transparency here, right?
I don't know, right? And it's one of the challenges that I so look forward to facing. I think it's right now, the best way we go about it is as we start to create, when we look at content of what we're going to create and we look at the creator, we make sure that, do you believe in the mission and what we're talking about? And do you find, and do we connect them with a subject that they genuinely, passionately care about, that they want to do? Because what we found, if those two things are there, then you're always going to be authentic. Right? It's when you are stretched or trying to push or trying to make something, right? And what I push our team all the time as we're thinking about content is, I want us to flirt this edge of all the content we do. We take care of the production, how it's presented. The vision is, I want this platform to be, it's going to feel like YouTube, where you can come and kind of see stuff and you'll see content creator type stuff, but it's going to be polished to where it almost feels like a TV station, right? It's going to be some like programming tools, like, oh, here's this, here's that. But, and I want that mix. And I was like, but how we stop ourselves from getting into that conformity is when we're like, oh, like we should do this because everybody's talking about it and we'll get a whole bunch of views. And guys, it's not for that. It's not for the views. It's not for it is, but not for that reason, just to get it. It's the views because they're engaged and this is what they want to hear about. And they want to hear about it because it's coming from somebody who truly believes in it. and it's coming from a deep place inside them. And that's what we want to capture. And so as we look to kind of scale that out, it's finding those people that connect with it, or finding those topics that we can find somebody who truly connects with something. And we feel like that's going to be our magic sauce for us as we continue to scale out. Is like, that's how we keep it authentic, is that we're connecting somebody to something they really believe about. Because if you think about it, if there's a story or anything that means something to you, right? Or like a favorite book, right? I think most people can get this. If you got a favorite book that it's like, oh my gosh, you love this book, right? Yeah. And then anytime anybody asks you about this book, you just light up and you will tell them, look, no, you got to read it. And I'm going to tell you why.
The best book ever.
Right? Nobody will ever think that you're being unauthentic, because they can feel it. They can see it in how you're talking about this book. Like, you really, like, they may get like, I don't even like science fiction, but KJ really loved this book. I got to go read it, just because I just saw a whole different side of her when she talked about this book. That's it, right? If we can keep connecting people to that, that will allow us to keep doing that and creating the right content and go out. And we'll see, right? I told my team, there's good problems to have. Let's get there. Let's get so big to where we're like, how do we keep doing this? And now it's like, great. Now we've got some real challenges, and those are good problems to have.
That would be a good problem to have. Why do you think that, this may sound like a really stupid question, but why do you think finance and entrepreneurship is two of the main tracks that you're not getting enough data and content about?
So, because it's number one, and this is starting to change across the board in the US, but we don't teach finance in school ever. We just don't. We teach you everything else, but we don't really teach you finances, period, right? So if you start there, and then you start on and these are just facts, right? Majority of African Americans live in an impoverished area, so their schools have less than the average schools. So already they're not getting finances in schools, right? So then of course you're not going to get finances in these underserved schools. And so you come out and you don't really even know how the world works from a finance standpoint. In today's society, you cannot exist without touching some sort of finance. You need to understand how these things work. If you don't understand it, then you are literally left and trapped on the outside of something. You're not allowed to it controls where you bank. It controls where you live. It controls what you have access to.
Sometimes the job you get.
The job you get, all these things are connected. They track credit scores now for background checks for jobs, right? So all these things are connected. So if you don't understand finance in this bigger system and how it works and how it affects you, then you will be affected by it. Right? You will be outside of the resources that you need because you don't understand how to use the finances properly. You don't understand how to use these tools properly to get access to the other things, which number one is just shitty, but it is the way it is, right? And if I look at it, there's two things we can do. We can sit there and complain about it and yell and say, this is unfair, this is unfair.
You can bitch about it. You can get a couple people and fight about it.
Right. I was like, or you can actually just realize that, okay, well, this is how it works. Let me figure out how this works and go work within it. And that's why finance for us was such a big thing. It's like, we have to show and teach and give our people areas where they can, like, okay, now you understand what this is. You understand credit, you understand finance, you understand how to put your finances together, you understand investments, you understand the banking system in general, you understand interest and credit, you understand what this means, you understand leverage, how you should manage that, where you can use it for, right? And it starts with just basic understanding of now you can balance your checkbook every day, right? You can have a balance, you know what's coming in, but then it gets to the more powerful stuff, which ties to entrepreneurship, right? People look around and goes, well, how did this person start this business and all this, whatever? You think, I try not to paint with broad brushes, but when I was growing up, and a lot of my friends, a lot of people I know, we saw business people, we immediately thought they were millionaires because it's like, that's what it would take to run a business. But we don't understand finance and leverage. It's like, no, you just have to have a decent enough financial standing. And now you can start to use leverage with your credit to do other things and go create a business. Now, when you're collecting debt, are you creating enough revenue to service that debt? Now that's seen as good debt that you have leverage that you can access. You can use that leverage to start doing more things. Right. So now you can get this small business loan to go and get your business up and going, right? You love to, whatever it is, you love to knit, you love to make cookies or whatever. It's like, hey, so now instead of you making cookies in your little oven, how about I give you the proper financial tools? You can go get a small little kitchen or a food truck, use leverage to go get that, get a bigger oven to go make your cookies. And then the price that you're selling for your cookies comes in that pays down or pays off the service debt for what you get to get your truck. And now everything else over is profit. Guess what? Now you're a business, right? And now that you're a business, when you pay taxes on what's left over because you're a business. Oh, by the way, guess what the tax system was created for? Business owners, not individual. Like all of this stuff unlocks when you just understand what it is. So if you knew nothing about that, right? If all of that was foreign to you, what would you do? You would just go to work. Right. Because that's all you know.
Because that's all you know.
And you would look at a world that's constantly passing by you and feels like it is not a place where you belong because you don't get it.
So you're really operating off of this principle that if you know the business or tech of something and you know how to use it, you cannot be the adverse effect of it.
Right.
So you're putting a large demographic of people at cause over their life.
Yes.
Over their finances, over entrepreneurship. I think it's really very interesting you're doing entrepreneurship because entrepreneurs create something out of nothing.
Right.
And that is not easy to do.
It's not.
It takes a great amount of create, it takes a great amount of smarts, doesn't matter what you're doing, right? It takes a great amount of courage, tenacity. I mean, it really does tell about the type of individual. An entrepreneur, even if he sucks, he's doing something, right? He's doing something about it, right? And again, that's disruption because what did our parents and so forth, that like, it was like, work for a company, don't be an entrepreneur. Like
it was, I can tell you from my standpoint, right up, and before my grandfather passed, it was about 7 years ago. I mean, he was full of stories, man, 90 years old. The things that he saw was amazing. But, for Black people, it was conformity was safety, right? Because if you did not, especially in the generation that he grew up in, my grandfather was, born in the 1920s, right? So like, if you didn't conform to an aspect of what they wanted you to be, you were killed.
Yeah, what a hostile environment, right?
And it's, I push so many people on this when they want to talk about this, like, oh, you bring that up. It was so long ago. I was like, no, it wasn't. It was
no, it really wasn't.
Like, it was a generation ago. Like, it's not
that long ago.
We're talking about 1800s, 1700s. It wasn't that long ago at all. And, all of that to say, it's like, it was, in our community, it was, yes, you got to conform because this is how you stay safe. It was all about staying safe, right? Because we just, Black mothers, Black fathers, they all get this, they send their kids out and it's like, I just want you to come home. Like, right? Because something as simple as looking the wrong way could mean you don't come home.
Or looking at the wrong person, right?
Right. So of course, we're not going to push anything outside of a norm. Entrepreneur, what? You just come home. You go get a good job. You put your head down. You do what you're supposed to do and you come home. That was it. Right. So for decades, that was all, like, just come home. Now, as we start to progress as a society, we get to get a little bit better. It's like, okay, you can start to dream a little bit. You can start to do different things. And I think now what's important about this time where we are currently is that we are starting to get more and more past that, where that conformity, that safety mindset is like, no, it's okay. Like, you can actually go be a trailblazer again, right? And the society has created a world between, digital media, banking, like literally the world is at your fingertips to go and create. And so at the heart of everything we want to do, and the new content creator we're working with, and I won't spoil it yet, okay. The marketing person would kill me, but all the stuff that we're getting to launch, when we got her to sign on, she said, look, I honestly don't care if one person sees anything that I do, but if that one person sees it and gets inspired and it makes them say, yes, I can do this. I believe about myself and this is who I am. And they feel comfortable in accepting who they are. She was like, I'm good. And I was like, and that is exactly why we want you on this platform, because that at the end of it is what it's about. Yes, we have a business plan and all the stuff we want to scale and make revenue, all these great things, right? I'm a capitalist, people, never get that twisted. But at the end of it, I was like, all I want is somebody to come to go was like, they found an article, they found a podcast, they saw one of our live shows and said, I get it. Like, I I want to do this, or I want to be better about this. I can go be an entrepreneur. I can manage my finance. I can do this. Like, that's it. And that's why we named it Ebony Ascent. It's about having these conversations that can get past sometimes this negative stereotypes that have been pushed on you to where you feel like you are less than, or you can't do something. All of that ends. And we're not feeding into that trope. We're not feeding into any of that. We're feeding into positivity and lifting you up and going, yes, you absolutely can. And by the way, we'll have a community here right behind you. So when you go out and say that you want to do something, we'll be here when you stumble, because you're going to stumble. We all do. It happens. It's okay, right? It's okay to stumble because you started, and then you'll get up, and then we'll come pick you up, and then you'll do it again, and then you'll do it again, and then you'll stop stumbling. And all of a sudden you'll look back and be like, holy shit, I did it. And
that's badass. That is completely different than Black entertainment, yes. TV, or, it really is it's an ascent, right?
Yeah.
What was I going to ask? Oh, when did you say that's freaking it? Like, when did you have that epiphany? I know it was a while coming, but what day you said that's freaking it? I'm doing something about this. I can't stand it.
Okay. So you guys get a little peek into the second part of the story. So there's two parts to the story that led to all this, right? The very beginning happened back in 2008, a long time ago. Well, I'll tell that story later. But this one, when I knew it was it, I had literally probably reached one of the pinnacles that you would say in a tech career, right? I was working for AWS, making just stupid amount of money. It was ridiculous. I could not believe how much they were paying me. And for a tech person, that's it. Like, you, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, this is it, right? And I hated it. I hated every single minute of it.
You are not the only person I hear that happens to.
Every time I got paid, KJ, I got depressed.
Why did you get depressed?
Because what was I doing? What was this? I didn't like the culture there. I didn't like everything they were about. And I was just like, this doesn't make any, they were trying to change who I was as a person. You need to think this way. I'm like, this is not, what am I doing?
Damn.
And so I left there. I left there in May of 2020. And so I was like, all right, not knowing where else I was going to go. I didn't really care. I'd done enough for myself. I was like, I got a good 2 years before I even have to worry about getting a job. I'm just going to live. I'm just going to see what happens. And we'd been having this conversation. I had my podcast, stuff like that. We've been talking about doing some of this stuff. And it was in June. I don't remember the exact day, but I remember it was in June. It was the summer because I was in Austin, and I had gone for a long bike ride. And I was sitting at park, by this little stream. And I just said, I was like, I thought about where I was, right? And I just had a conversation the day before, oh, what are you doing? What are you up to? When's your next job? I was like, I don't know. I don't care. I don't. And they're like, damn, you got it like that. I was like, no, I don't have it like that. But I was like, I've put together a plan where I don't really need to go and work. And I thought about it. I was like, what? This is refreshing. I don't have to do anything. I was like, this feeling should be manufactured and everybody should be able to do this. And then I said, this is what I want to do, right? I just want to do this. I just want to make sure that I can create a pathway where everybody can figure this out for themselves. That everybody can feel this. What is it? And it started, and it just like that, it all started coming. I was like, we can do the finance, we can do this. And I started texting, my co-founder, and I was like, we got to do this. We got to do this. I was like, I get these huge ideas, right? And they know me. I get ideas and it's over. It's, I got the whole thing planned out, all this stuff, whatever. And so it was that day I came back, we had the meeting that night, and we're like, we should do this. Let's do it. Let's do the media company. I said, done. I formed the LLC that night. And then we just been rolling ever since.
Wow.
And it's, it's not always, it's not always as cliche as that. Like I said, there's longer conversations and stuff that happened before that led up to that. But I feel like you hear it enough times when you talk to people and you talk to any entrepreneur, right? There's always that moment that just pushes you where it's either rock bottom or you've got nothing else to do, back against the wall. I got to make this work, or it's you're fed up. Something just hits you. You're just like, I'm not fucking doing this anymore. Yep. You're just done, right?
Great. You are done.
And it's, and I think and I would tell any entrepreneur, you've got to figure out what that why of why you're doing something like has to be visceral. It has to be tied to something, because there are going to be days where money and fame or whatever, like free, it's not going to matter to you. It's not going to get your ass out of bed, right? Or it's not going to keep you up till 2 o'clock in the morning doing what you need. It's not going to do it. There's got to be a visceral connection of a why that I'm doing this that will fuel you. And if you don't have that, this is not the life for you, right?
Well, if you don't have that, people aren't going to follow you either.
That's true.
You know, we are in an age where people are saying, wait a minute, why does it have to be this way? You know, it's not just in your community, it's in many communities, right? And we are in a particular society now where that's being more welcome. However, that conformity is still there, and you are going to piss people off. Oh yeah. Right? You already know that, right? Oh yeah. What have you expected in terms of that?
I've expected all of it. I've expected, people to, attack, my character. I've expected people to drag me into, and I've had a couple of people try, like in political discussions about like why I'm, pandering to race and this is, why does it need to be this? It can be about everything. You guys have had plenty of opportunities, all this stuff. Like it is, and I see it for what it is. It is that conformity, is that change. And I always respond with what I said to you earlier. I was like, since when does being for something mean anti anything? And I was like, so your reaction to what, we're doing tells me that you are threatened by something.
Well, they're threatened by the fact that disruptors are getting out of the rat race, whatever the rat race is.
Right.
It's a rat race.
You feel like things changing different than what you are used to or somehow going to affect you, which it will, but you automatically think it's going to be a negative thing.
Well, it's going to affect their mortgage, and it's going to affect their, conform society and everything they know to be everything they like, and they put it in a box.
Yeah. And so look, I've, me personally, I've prepared that. And then I told the team, like, we'll get to a certain point where people will say that, again, like we're playing the race card, or we're doing this, or we'll be, tagged as some kind of, terrorist group or like whatever they try to do, because like because I told everybody, we're not going to be apologetic about anything.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? Don't apologize for, who you are, how you feel, what it is, and what our culture is. Let's put it in front, and don't apologize when we call out things that are wrong. And so look, and so it's part of that is that I've kind of, tried to prep them for some of that, but we'll see it when it gets there, right? History has shown that anytime anybody wants to disrupt or says something that other people disagree with, right? And independent when it comes to, race, religion, finance, to a lot, like it, you get visceral reactions for it. And so we'll see. We've tempered that a little bit.
You're doing something right, though.
Exactly. And we've tempered that by like, staying away from certain content for now, based on the size of where we are. Like one of my buddies he really wants us to do a political show. And I said, okay. I was like, we will. I was like, just not right now. I want us to grow a little bit more. I want us to have a better community around us, a better backing behind us. Because when we go that route, I was like, you've seen what that is. We know exactly, as soon as we do that, we know what's coming. And not that I want to make sure we have the resources to fight the right way, because we're going to stand in it and we're going to fight. But we don't want to get into that fight and all of a sudden we just don't have the resources to stay and keep going at it. I was like, but believe me, we're going to get into that. We're
very
going to
Sun Tzu of you to hold back and wait for a little bit. Yes. Who are the early adopters, of this new type of media group? Who are the, tell me about the visionaries that are getting on board, right?
So right now, we've seen a lot with younger, which we were not surprised, but we thought it would take a little bit more to get them, right? So it's
younger as far as like what age?
Yeah, so yeah, right. Because I'm showing my age. So the 25 to 30 group, right?
Okay.
Which we felt that we always knew we wanted to go after that group, but we thought it would take a little bit longer to get them. But we've been seeing a lot of response from that group so far, which has been good, and they love it because they don't. They're running that generation where they're looking at it and they're like, I don't really know if I like what I see out here, right?
They haven't had to conform yet. They're at the tip of the berg, right? Right.
And they're just kind of like, I don't know if I want to kind of do what everybody else is doing. Like we've had there was one young lady that I met. She was actually really young. She was just turned 18. And like, I met her out in, just out outside Atlanta. It was her and her mother. We're at a little coffee shop or whatever. Long story short, I'm a networker. I've never met a stranger, so I'm always talking to people. And she was like, oh, my daughter just turned 18 and she's trying to figure out what to do. And I was telling her about the college I went to, but more specifically I told her, I was like, hey, finances. I was like, learn it right now. You're 18. If you get this right now, by the time you're 40, I was like, you will never have to worry about money again in your life if you pay attention right now and just get on it. And her mother looked at her and goes, listen to him, because I'm telling you, she was like, this is what I didn't know. So she subscribed to our Money-ish blog, stuff like that, or whatever. She's reached out to me then. She goes, oh my God, I've learned so much. She goes, and because I'm telling my friends, because she's going to community college here. She was like, no, don't go off these credit cards, do this or whatever. And she's eating all this stuff up because, again, she didn't know where to get it from. Right. So we're seeing some more of that demographic. And then on our creator side, we're getting people reaching out to us who are just like, yes, like I've been wanting, we had one real estate agent who was like, they want to do a real estate podcast. She goes, I've been wanting to do a real estate podcast about the realness of being a Black homeowner and shopping for homes as a Black, she was like, she wanted to do all this stuff, but she was scared because
that would be fantastic.
She felt like if I did this, like she would alienate like this or that, whatever. Her company would come against her, like just, like again, the conformity thing, right? Like she had, and so we've got a couple of kind of requests for that. So we've been going through that, talking to some potential creators. And so far it's been people who are just like, look, this is the information. They couldn't find a way to get it. They love the way we present it. And then creators are just like, hey, like I love this angle that you're going at too. And I want to kind of do something with this angle too. And so we're just like, okay.
You're doing your own creator economy.
Yes, that is the vision as it starts to create. We want to have twofold: a place for creators to come in, and we help them with whatever they want to do. If they match with the audience and the voice that we have and want to put out there, we'll create a place for them to come and create their platform and do that. And then really and then our audience members, right? Like all these people that can come and say, 5 years from now, people come to Ebony Ascent. It's like, I go to Ebony Ascent for everything. I want financial advice, I go here. I want to learn how to start a business, I go here. I want courses, I go here. Like it's just a place where they come because they know they can find it. And again, from people that look like them, that can relate to them, because it is different. Like, and I think what's important and what I would love to see as we go forward is like, I want to see this for everybody, because it is different. Like, if you're a woman entrepreneur, it's going to be different if I talk to you versus KJ if you talk to them, right? Because there's certain things that as a woman, I will never understand what it's like in a meeting. I'm not a woman. I will never get it. I can empathize, right? Because trust me, in tech, I see it.
Well, yeah, you see it, but women learn things differently and we ask things differently and we think about things differently, right? So just that alone makes it a different community.
Yeah. And I think that, people are really, we've done a great job in society of voicing how much representation matters. And it's waking people up to going, yes, like that. Sometimes they didn't even realize that that's what it was. Like they didn't understand why they were uncomfortable until they realized it's because nobody here looks like me. It's like nobody here like relates to me, whatever that is. If it's nobody here is my same religion, nobody here is like, we need that as people. We need to feel that connection with somebody that says, I don't have to talk, like you just know. Right. Yeah. That is so important. And when somebody like that communicates something to you, then it just, I want to find somebody who can break it down. It's like, I feel like we learn it better, right? When somebody that you can connect with and go, they see me, they understand me. When I hear it from them, it resonates versus this other person who may know it 10 times as much as this other person, but it just doesn't come across. I get maybe 70% of it, but not all of it. There's something there in that connection that carries the rest of it. And we want to amplify that.
Well, I think that's awesome. What do you, What are your challenges and growth in the next few years?
Um, our biggest challenge is honestly marketing, getting out there, getting above the noise, right? There's a lot of people doing all kinds of stuff, which is great. That people have the ability to do it. Not so great in that there's a lot of just crap out there.
Yeah.
So one, it's really, honing and amplifying that message and getting used to that. And then after that, it's I would think for us, it's anything any other media company has. It's like continue to engage with our audience, right? Making sure we're staying connected with things that they feel is valuable, right? And so as we look at that over the next couple of years, like what is that? We could say, finance and business is a thing right now. Is it going to? I feel like those things will always be there.
They'll always be there,
right?
They'll always be there.
As we look forward, is there other content we want to get into, and how do we stay focused, and not spread ourselves too thin? Because like I said, we've had content meetings about all kinds of stuff that we want to do, and I was like, everybody, I want to do it all. I was like, but we've got to stay focused so we can build it and make sure we have the base to kind of give that to. So I think those are our biggest things, right? Just staying true to how we grow and stay connected with our content, with our audience, and then just getting,
marketing.
Surviving as a startup.
Market your ass off, right?
Right. Getting the message out there, getting that community, right? And that's what I tell us. Like, we want to try, man. We want people we're starting to see it. We've had, like, my CEO told me he's had like 5 messages over the last 2 weeks of people like, I love everything you do. I just want to work for you guys. I'll work for free. What do you guys need? And we're just like, okay.
Like, how do you think, as this grows, how do you think this is really this conformity that's changing all these dynamics, right? Because conformity is a mindset.
Yes.
So is Ascent. It's a mindset. So as this changes, it's changing like all the time. What do you think things are going to be like in the next 5 years as this grows?
Honestly, I think we're on the verge of seeing, like, the economy, like what started off as like this kind of gig economy, right? That people talked about. It needed what we're having as a after effect of the pandemic, which is people realizing that it's like, there's more than one way to survive in this world and do these things, right? So you see the opportunities with the gig economy is done from a platform perspective in ways that you can create revenue for yourself, whatever it is, content creator, DoorDash, all this stuff or whatever, it's the same thing. You can produce information and then sell it or do a service or whatever. And so I think as part of that, as people start to get the knowledge of, I want to learn and do different things. I want to be, I think we're going to see kind of a renaissance of what we saw like way back in the days of like Aristotle, and when we have philosophers and people who just were like, hey, I want to be something. What is that? Let me go seek knowledge and then turn that into something that I can do. It won't quite be that, but I think what we're going to see is this digital.
That's beautiful though.
Where people really just kind of seek out what the information is and they just say, okay, well, I want to do this and this is what I want to offer out to the world. And there's a platform for me to do that and then create a living for myself. And I do think we're going to see less about, we will see people, they're just going to be more billionaires, all this stuff. Capitalism is going to exist. But I think this is going to create is a more healthy kind of middle-class area where it's like, you can find a way to survive and be you and just offer your services and your art or whatever it is to the world and experience it in a different way, which you couldn't do before. The only way you could do this, like, you had to be tied to some kind of job and some kind of 9 to 5. Like you can as a entrepreneur, a self-employed person, make the same, if not a little bit better living than working 9 to 5 at like a Kmart, right? And I'm not, speaking down to any of these people, but I'm just saying, like, you have options now. Before that was like,
well, if that's what you wanted to do, right?
Like,
seriously, if that's what you wanted to do it.
Right. Like, oh, this is going to be scary. Like, there's people there because they feel like there's no other way for me to do it. I got to get this. And now it's like, no, like, dude, look at the world that we live in. Like, you can start up a freaking Shopify store in 2 minutes and like sell like and people's like, well, I gotta be this sales. It's like, no, you don't. Like, you can just use these services that are there, learn what this system is, learn the things about it, and then exist in this world and like kind of really like be free. We're seeing a lot in the tech where people now are getting like, they're trading their homes for like mobile homes and just like traveling the world and like working from their computer anywhere. And they're just taking contract gigs.
Seriously
like,
okay, considering that.
For 6 months, right?
Yeah.
And then, so I really do think we're going to see that, right? We're going to see this kind of, push, and it's waking up people realizing that there's different ways that they can go about stuff. And it's going to change the way we look at it's going to change the economy, right?
Totally.
And how things go about it. And so, and it's going to be interesting how these corporations respond, right? And I think we're going to see a big push towards contract jobs. I think W-2 employment's going to kind of not going to go away, but it's going to have to start. You're going to have to start offering positions like, okay, well, you can be W-2, or I can hire you as a contractor. We can do this because people are realizing it's like, look, I am the service, right? I am the resource. Human resources. I am the resource.
I am the resource. Yes.
Hey, like, I can work for you, or I can work for here, I can work for there. And it's very funny because I know a lot of
you should add that to your financial track, contract negotiation, like employment the negotiation. You should add that. That would be something so cool. Listen to me telling you what you should do.
It's actually a really good idea. I've got a friend of mine. That's what she does is she's a VP in human resources. So she knows all about that. That's actually a really good idea. Thanks.
Well, thank you. David, what were you like as a little boy? Like, have you always been this like, oh my God, I've got this idea, I'm going to disrupt it? Or were you like quiet and looking at things like,
so
what were you like?
I have been a version of this my entire life. So the earliest story I can tell you is my mom, I don't forget how old I was. But my mom tells a story where I came home one day and told her, like, when I turn 18, I'm going to graduate high school and I'm going to fly across the country. And I was like 7 or something. It was like really like, for me to say this at the age, it was just like shocking. And then my mom, I was always thinking, and so like having these conversations when I was younger, I would get kicked out of class because I would finish my work so fast, or like a teacher would say something and logically it wouldn't make sense. And so I was young, so I didn't know how, but I was challenging the logic of it. But I was truly just asking questions because I didn't understand it. And I was always pushing, because if it didn't make sense to me, then I wasn't going to accept it. You weren't just going to tell me something that didn't make sense. And so, yeah, I've always been like this. And thankfully, my mom had a good friend who realized, like, and this is another problem sometimes, like, but like, they tried to, classify me. Oh, he's this, he needs to be in a special class, all this stuff, whatever. And my mom's best friend stepped in and said, that's bullshit. Like, go get him tested for advanced classes. I guarantee you that's not the case. It's like, he's too smart for these teachers. And so literally that's what ended up happening. And so it was just like, and they started looking at it as like, he's not, they started asking questions. What do you mean he's disrupting class? Like, what is he doing? Is he doing stuff? Is he, and she was like, well, no, he's just, he's taking us off track by asking all these questions and things like that. So wait a minute, you've got a student who's asking questions and wants to know more. He goes, well, he won't accept the answers that I give him. It was like, again, how is this a bad thing? So yeah, I've always been this way. And it just, as I got older, right, it just kept going. And I kind of found my voice, and yeah.
But don't you find it's ironic that you end up in the tech industry, which is typically always about conformity? I mean, listen, high-tech societies have always been historically like even in science fiction, just like conformity, right?
Right.
And now you're building this society in high tech has nothing to do with conformity. It's like wide open.
It has been a very interesting journey, crazy. And when I look back at it, so people always tell me it'll make a very interesting book one day. So we'll see.
You will. And so what do you do outside of this? Do you have any crazy passions, or is this your crazy passion?
This is definitely the craziest passion, but outside of this, to unwind, I love like kind of playing sports. So golf, even though I suck at it, but I just love being out there on the course. I grew up in the generation of video games, so I'm still a video game head. And actually, my college buddies and I have this big group, and so we'll get together, just play games either on the weekend or at night, stuff like that. And it's also a chance for us to kind of, guys do have groups as well, right? It's not the same as women, but like that's our chance for us to just kind of connect and bond and share dad stories and stuff like that and uplift each other. So those are the two, and then movies. I'm a big Marvel fan, MCU. So any MCU movie that comes out, I am there.
You are on it. Yes. And so you like to play golf even though you suck at it?
Yeah.
Okay. Only you, David.
It's because it's the mental aspect for me, right? Like golf is very much and I like playing, like I'll try and go like super early or like late, like in off seasons. Like right now it's going to be peak season, so it's always going to be full. But I kind of like going when not a lot of people are out there. Number one, because I'm not rushed. But two, like there's something about like connecting if you're like on a really nice course, like just with nature and being out there and like being able to silence your mind and like focus on what you're doing, because you need that focus to be able to hit the ball and like do stuff, whatever. So it's that's what I love about it. It's a very peaceful, zenful, competitive thing because I'm competing against myself and I hit a bad shot and I'm like, geez, that was so horrible. And then it's about being like smart enough to like, or calm enough to go, okay, stop it, sending yourself back, get the next shot. And I don't know, it's just this. And then to be like on a course when it's a beautiful day and like,
you go by yourself?
I do. I go for myself a lot. Specifically here because I don't have a good group yet. In Austin, I had buddies and we would go all the time. So here it's mostly by myself, and so I'm still networking, reaching out, and getting some good golf buddies. But I've kind of enjoyed, kind of doing the solo golf thing. It's kind of nice. But
that's cool. And for our listeners, it's Atlanta.
Yes.
Atlanta, Georgia. So David, tell people how to get a hold of you.
So it's super easy. Number one, go to ebonyascent.com and you can connect to all our socials there. And then specifically me, email address is david@onthecorner.us. I would give you my socials, but honestly, I'm not on it. I'm actually handing it off to most other people. I don't even manage my socials anymore. So best way to get at me is to go to ebonyascent.com, because if you post something on there or send me an email, that's the fastest way to get a response from me.
Badass. And one last question. If you had to describe the industry, the category, or whatever you're disrupting, what would it be?
Man, I would say online media. And we're disrupting online media and how, let me back that up. It's online media and content creation. Because how we're approaching it and the platform that we're building and putting together is built to both empower content creators and the actual audience at the same time, and make sure that it's kind of equal and fair to both. And for listeners that are saying, but YouTube does that, Instagram does that. They do, but they're slanted towards making YouTube and Instagram money, right? We're building this platform not to make the platform money. It's to empower both, because we want an easy way for content creators to get what they want and create their content and get their message and their voice, their authentic is out there, and a place where the audience can come and know that this is coming from creators who have the same mindset as you, who think like you, who look like you, came from the same areas. And so that's kind of that area we're disrupting, is that online media content creator area of like, oh, go create a bunch of content and then sell courses and you do this and then do these ads and blah, 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 whatever. And now all of a sudden I've got 1 million followers and I'm all this, whatever, and I don't have anything. Like, no, we're not about any of that shit. It's like, come here, get some real stuff that's actually going to help you. And then come here and help and be part of a platform that allows you to be your authentic self and get your voice out there and talk about what you want to talk about. Like, and not be like censored or you have to conform your content into a way to get it specifically on this algorithm so you can get the views that you want and all this stuff, whatever.
Well, I think in essence, after you just said all that, I think you're disrupting authenticity at its core. That's what I think.
Okay. I'll take that.
David, thank you. Thank you so much. I could talk to you for hours, but yeah, that's a wrap, everyone. If you learned something today or laughed, go tell someone about this podcast. If you want to go golf with David, hook up with them in Atlanta. Tell people to go disrupt their markets with some tidbit from this show. And thank you for listening to Disruption Interruption, where we transform lives, change consumer behavior, alter economics, and never accept the status quo. Ciao for now.
Bye, everybody.
Because we live in a highly litigious society, with America being one of the top litigious countries in the world, here's our legal disclaimer. This information is not intended to be a substitute for professional public relations or legal advice. Do not disregard seeking professional legal, healthcare, or financial advice, or delay seeking professional PR or legal advice because of something you have heard here. Contact an attorney to obtain advice on any particular legal situation or problem. Use of this podcast or our website or any of its social media or email links do not create an agency-client relationship between Johto PR and the user.